Again, good morning, everyone. This is your Nilofer ma'am. I am explaining you chapter 6 of history. Topic of the chapter is new questions and ideas. So, in the previous part of the video, I have explained you the half chapter in which we have discussed over the topics like who was Buddha, we have discussed about the Upanishads, we have discussed about some other topics also. Now, the next topic which we are going to discuss, that is Jainism. So, Jainism is a religion. Let's read. The last and 24th Tirthankara of the Jainas, Vardhaman Mahavir, also spread his message around this time, for example 2500 years ago. He was a Kshatriya prince of the Lichavis, a group that was part of the Vajji Sangha about which you read in chapter 5. At the age of 30, he left home and went to live in a forest. For 12 years, he led a hard and lonely life, at the end of which he attained enlightenment. So, the last and 24th Tirthankara of the Jainas was Vardhaman Mahavir. He also spread his message about 2500 years ago. Mahavir was a Kshatriya prince of the Lichavis, which is a group and a part of the Vajji Sangha. About Vajji Sangha, you have read in chapter 5. So, Mahavir left his home at the age of 30 and went to live in a forest. For 12 years, he led a very hard life, and after that, he attained enlightenment. He taught a simple doctrine: men and women who wished to know the truth must leave their homes. They must follow very strictly the rules of ahimsa, which means not hurting or killing living beings. All beings, said Mahavir, long to live. To all things, life is dear. So, Vardhaman Mahavir taught a simple rule that men and women who wish to know the truth, they must leave their homes. And everyone must have to follow the rules of ahimsa to know the truth. Ahimsa means not hurting or killing anyone. According to ahimsa, every living being has to live long, because to all, life is dear. Ordinary people could understand the teachings of Mahavir and his followers because they used Prakrit. So, Buddha taught in Prakrit language and Mahavir also taught in Prakrit language only, so that ordinary people can also understand his teachings. There were several forms of Prakrit used in different parts of the country and named after the regions in which they were used. So, Prakrit was the ordinary language that could be understood by people, that could be understood by ordinary people, but there were forms of Prakrit language and they were dependent on the region in which it was used. For example, we can see the Prakrit spoken in Magad was known as Magadhi. So, like here we can see that in Magad the Prakrit was spoken and it is known as Magadhi. So, the forms of Prakrit was based on the region in which it was used. Followers of Mahavir, who were known as Jainas, had to lead very simple lives, begging for food. They had to be absolutely honest and were especially asked not to steal. Also, they had to observe celibacy, and men had to give up everything, including their clothes. So, the followers of Mahavir, who were known as Jainas, they had to lead very simple life. They have to beg for food, and they had to be absolutely honest, and especially they were asked not to steal anything. They also had to observe celibacy, and men had to give up everything, including their clothes. It was very difficult for most men and women to follow these strict rules. Nevertheless, thousands left their homes to learn and teach this new way of life. Many more remained behind and supported those who became monks and nuns, providing them with food. Jainism was supported mainly by traders. So, the rules which were described by Mahavir were very difficult for most men and women to follow because the rules were too strict. Nevertheless, 1,000 people left their homes to learn this new way of life. Many more remained behind, and those who supported the people who became a monk and nuns, and they provided food to these monks and nuns. Jainism was mainly supported by traders. Farmers who had to kill insects to protect their crops found it more difficult to follow the rules. So, it was the rule of Jainism that not to kill any living person, and farmers had to kill insects forests to protect their crops. So the farmers found it more difficult to follow the rules of Jainism. Over hundreds of years, Jainism is spread to different parts of North India and to Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka. So, over hundreds of years, Jainism was spread in the different parts of India like North India, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka. The teachings of Mahavir and his followers were transmitted orally for several centuries. They were written down in the form in which they are presently available at a place called Valabhi in Gujarat about 1500 years ago. See map 7 on page number 105 to see the location. So the teachings of Mahavir and his followers were transmitted orally for several centuries. It was not written at that time, and it was written down in the form in which they are presently available at a place which is called Valabhi in Gujarat, and it was written about 1500 years ago only. Now let's see the next topic which we are going to discuss, that is the Sangha. So let's see what is Sangha. Both the Mahavir and the Buddha felt that only those who left their homes could gain true knowledge. They arranged for them to stay together in the Sangha, an association of those who left their homes. So both the founders of Jain religion and Buddha religion, Mahavir and the Buddha, they felt that only the people can gain true knowledge who left their homes. So they arranged for them to stay together in a Sangha. Sangha is an association of those who left their homes. So they stay together in a group. The rules made for the Buddhist Sangha were written down in a book called Vinay Pitaka. From this, we know that there were separate branches for men and women. All men could join the Sangha. However, children had to take the permission of their parents and slaves that of their masters. So the rules that is made for the Buddhist Sangha, they were written down in a book, and the book is called Vinay Pitaka. From the book only, we know that there were separate branches for men and women. All men can join the Sangha. However, the children has to take the permission of their parents, and the slaves has to take the permission of their masters to join the Sangha. Those who worked for the king had to take his permission, and debtors that of creditors. Women had to take their husband's permission. So to join the Sangha, the people who worked for the king, they had to take the permission of the king. The debtors had to take the permission of the creditors, and the women had to take the permission of their husbands. Men and women who joined the Sangha led simple lives. They meditated for most of the time and went to cities and villages to beg for food during fixed hours. That is why they were known as bhikkhus, the Prakrit word for renouncer, beggar, and bhikkhunis. They taught others and helped one another. They also held meetings to settle any quarrels that took place within the Sangha. So men and women who joined the Sangha, they led very simple lives. They meditated most of the time, and they had to beg for food during the fixed hours. And because of the begging, they were known as bhikkhus, which is a Prakrit word for renouncer, beggar, and bhikkhunis. Bhikkhu is used for men, and bhikkhunis is used for women. They taught others and they helped each other. They also held meetings to settle the quarrels which were take place within the Sangha. Those who joined the Sangha included Brahmins, Kshatriyas, merchants, laborers, barbers, courtesans, and slaves. Many of them wrote down the teachings of the Buddha. So those who joined the Sangha, and like Brahmins, Kshatriyas, etc., many of them wrote down the teachings of the Buddha. Some of them also composed beautiful poems describing their life in the Sangha. Now let's have a look at the next topic, that is monasteries, which is related to the Sangha of Jains and Buddhists. To begin with, both Jains and Buddhist monks went from place to place throughout the year teaching people. The only time they stayed in one place was during the rainy season, when it was very difficult to travel. So throughout the year, the Sanghas of Jains and Buddhist monks went from place to place to teach people, and the only time when they had to stay at one place, that was during the rainy season, because during the rainy season it was very difficult to travel. Then their supporters built temporary shelters for them in gardens, or they lived in natural caves in hilly areas. And during the rainy season, their supporters built temporary shelters for them in the gardens, and they lived in natural caves also in hilly areas. As times went on, many supporters of the monks and nuns and they themselves felt the need for more permanent shelters, and so monasteries were built. So when the time has passed, many supporters of the monks and nuns themselves felt that there is a need for permanent shelters, and that is why monasteries were built. These were known as viharas. The earliest viharas were made of wood and then of brick. Some were even in caves that were dug out in hills, especially in western India. So, the monasteries were known as viharas, and the earliest viharas were made of wood, then brick, and some viharas were made in the caves also that were dug out in hills, especially in the western India. Here you can see the picture, a cave hollowed out in the hills. This is a cave in Karle, present day Maharashtra. Monks and nuns lived and meditated in these shelters. So you can see the hollow cave. The monks and nuns lived in the cave and meditated for rainy season. Very often, the land on which the vihara was built was donated by a rich merchant or a landowner or the king. The local people came with gifts of food, clothing, and medicines for the monks and nuns. In return, they taught the people. Over the centuries, Buddhism spread to many parts of the subcontinent and beyond. You will learn more about this in chapter 9. So, very often, what happened, the land on which the viharas were built, the land was donated by rich merchant or the landowners or the king, and the local people came to the monks and nuns with the gifts, food, clothes, medicines, and in return the monks and nuns taught the people. So over the centuries, Buddhism spread to many parts of the subcontinent and beyond the subcontinent also, about which you will learn in chapter 9. Now let's have a look at the next topic, that is a Buddhist text. What a Buddhist text tells us, let's see. Just as the waters of rivers lost their names and separateness when they flow into the mighty ocean, so are varna and ranks and family forgotten when the followers of the Buddha join the order of monks. So it is being told here that when the water of the rivers separates from the river and joins in the mighty ocean, so it lose its names. So that happens in the term of varna, ranks also, when the followers join the sangha, when the followers join the monks, they they lost their varna, they lost their ranks, and they forgot their family. Now let's see the next topic, that is the system of ashrams. Around the time when Jainism and Buddhism were becoming popular, Brahmins developed the system of ashrams. So at that time when Jainism and Buddhism were becoming popular, Brahmins developed the system of ashrams. Here the word ashram does not mean a place where people live and meditate. It is used instead for a stage of life. Four ashrams were recognized, that were brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. Brahmin, Kshatriya, and Vaishya men were expected to lead simple lives and study the Vedas during the early years of their life. So that is called brahmacharya. So Brahmin, Kshatriya, and Vaishya men were expected to lead simple lives, and they were expected to study the Vedas during the early years of their life. That is brahmacharya. Then they had to marry and live as householders, that is grihastha. Then they had to live in the forest and meditate, that is vanaprastha. Finally, they had to give up everything and become sannyasis. So what they have to do after studying the Vedas, after the brahmacharya ashram, they had to marry and they had to live as householders as grihastha ashram, and then they had to live in the forest, which is called Vanaprastha, and in the last they had to give up everything and they had to become sannyasis. The system of ashrams allowed men to spend some of their lives in meditation. Generally, women were not allowed to study the Vedas and they had to follow the ashrams chosen by their husbands. So, the system of ashrams allowed men to spend some part of their lives in meditation also, that is called Vanaprastha. So, generally, the women were not allowed to study the Vedas and they had to follow the ashrams chosen by their husbands only. Now, let's see the conclusion of the chapter. Find Iran in your atlas. You may have an atlas. You have to find Iran in your atlas. Zoroaster was an Iranian prophet. His teachings are contained in a book called the Avesta. The language of the Avesta and the practices described in it are very similar to those of the Vedas. So, Zoroaster was an Iranian prophet and his teachings are contained in a book which is called Avesta. So, the language of Avesta and the practices described in Avesta, they are very similar to those of the Vedas. The basic teachings of Zoroaster are contained in the maxim good thoughts, good words and good deeds. So what are the basic teachings of Zoroaster? That is good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Here is a verse from the Zend Avesta. Lord grant strength and the rule of truth and good thinking, by means of which one shall create peace and tranquility. So in that rhyme also, in that verse also, it is being told that there should be truth, there should be good thinking. For more than 1,000 years, Zoroastrianism was a major religion in Iran. Later, some Zoroastrians migrated from Iran and settled down in the coastal towns of Gujarat and Maharashtra. They were the ancestors of today's Parsis. So, for more than 1,000 years, Zoroastrianism was a major religion in Iran only, and later some Zoroastrians migrated from Iran and they settled in the coastal towns of Gujarat and Maharashtra, and they were the ancestor of today's Parsis of India. So it was chapter 6 of history, new questions and new ideas which I have explained you. I hope everything is clear to all of you. If still any confusion is there, so you can ask me on the WhatsApp also. I'll meet you in the another explanation video. Till that, keep learning, stay home, stay safe. Bye bye everyone.